It's Art of LUCIDPIXUL, and I am incredibly excited to bring you this book today. The Art of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, there's a few reasons for this. I'm not just excited for one reason, for one simple purpose that it's a good book. I'm excited because, number one, this was created by my homegirls and my homeboys here in Montreal, Canada. So shout out to Ubisoft Quebec, to Ubisoft Montreal, and an absolute masterpiece of a game. But secondly, because I've been playing this for the last 3.5 months, despite everybody harassing me to play the new Final Fantasy, which I will. I'll get to that, but I am enjoying myself way too much. And I'm also, one of the reasons why I'm playing it now, I actually purchased it when it first came out, but then I got caught up in work. So I didn't get to play it much. And it wasn't until one of my students, who's a historian, who knows a lot about Greek mythology and Greek history, told me I really owe it to myself to play this, not only because it's a gorgeous game, but because of how much it respects and has tried to remain as faithful as humanly possible to true Greek architecture and lore and history. They put a lot of work into that kind of stuff where they could. There's a little bit of artistic license taken, of course, for the sake of visuals and gameplay and stuff like that, but not to the point where it disrespects true Greek lore. So it really compelled me to try it, and I haven't been able to put it down since. And I'm really approaching it from a completionist's perspective, doing all the side quests, all the gear, really exploring the entire landscape. I'm not just running through the core experience. So let's crack this beautiful thing open, and the first thing you're going to see is this overwhelmingly humongous map. I've been playing for longer than I can imagine, and I've only covered about half of this map. I've still got this entire half of it that I haven't even gone anywhere near. Now, when we actually break into the artwork itself, this first piece is kind of setting an expectation the way a lot of books do, that first impression thing that I like to talk about. If you check out my book review for Game of Thrones right here, and there's several others as well, but I learned in my last video that you're limited to 5 links, so I can't abuse that, unfortunately. The use of photo textures, and you're going to notice a theme when it comes to this particular type of stuff. Notice that we're dealing with the same thing in Game of Thrones that we're dealing with here. Realism. We're trying to recreate a realistic landscape, which requires a lot of subtleties in the design that can be very difficult to recreate by hand. So there's the element of realism, but there's also the element of huge body of work that needs to be accomplished. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an insanely huge game. I mean, it feels endless. So the fact that they have this huge body of work, all of these landscapes, all of these different locations and these characters and these side characters and everything that goes into it, they had to be able to address this in a timely manner while pulling off something that looks believable at the same time. But I feel that they did this in a beautiful way where you don't feel like you're overwhelmed with photo bashing and you actually feel the artistry behind it. So my thumbs up to you guys for pulling it off so well. Now, Leonidas is introduced very early in the game. You actually don't play him. He's just a kind of an introductory character where you're thrown right into battle. And this is one of the things, again, that I love about what I really enjoyed about this game is you're thrown right into the action. You feel like you're physically constantly engaged with your remote control, that you're in control of what's going on, and that the story doesn't drag on so long, Kojima, that you kind of sit there for half an hour going, waiting for the story to pass so you can start pressing buttons again. You're immediately thrown into the action, and the controls. I mean, Assassin's Creed has always been known for having amazing controls, but man. And Leonidas comes in very, very early in the game. Now, one of the things that excites me right off the bat, and I didn't know this until I picked up the book, is that a lot of these designs, a lot of this artwork is by somebody I know personally, Fred Rambaud from Montreal, Canada, who I met at the Ottawa Gaming Conference. We were both giving our own workshop. This is also where I met Tina Nawrocki as well from Cuphead, which you can check out right here. And I got to actually meet her and meet him at the same time. And what a guy. I mean, very quiet, very, he's not like an outspoken guy as far as that goes, but just what a compassionate, genuine, and talented guy. Oh my God. I mean, I saw his workshop, though I actually sat in for his workshop and I was just, I could have sat there for 16 hours. I could have starved myself to death watching this guy talk. He's just such a fascinating artist. So if you definitely, I'll leave a link to his Artstation below. Definitely go and give him a like for sure. Now, one of the things that the art director describes in this page is the art director for this was Thierry Dansereau. And one of the things he mentions is that they wanted to create diversity. When you have a map as huge as you have, if everything looks samey all the time, it can really take away from the immersiveness of the game. You just get brain fatigue seeing the same landscapes over and over again. And they really succeeded in avoiding that. Every single time you land on a different island, you're in a different environment, you feel like you're in a different place and you get this fresh, refreshed experience. So the way that they achieved this while not stepping away from realism was through different biomes. And they have 6 different biomes, which is a good variety. And each of these different biomes, we're going to give you a different greenery, different animals, different topography as far as the actual layout of the map itself, but also plays into the weather that you get as well. This is some more bird's eye view shots, kind of like Icaros looking down at the shot. But you can see where you get these different types of weather and these different types of landscapes. These up here were actually designed by Wang Yutan over here. And this here on the right, this very moody piece, was designed by another artist that I know who I don't know if I've met. I feel like I've met her. I know that I heard about her back when she was working at Sarbacane, but I didn't know she actually worked on this, and that's Caroline Soucy. That name is incredibly familiar to me though. And I always recognize Caroline's work as being very moody. And she really captures this beautifully in this piece over here. But once we get into these different biomes, Thierry was also mentioning that they use these different biomes as excuses to have different types of weather conditions as well. Again, adding to the variety. And the weather and the landscapes, the shift from one type of a climate to the other is seamless. I mean, what an accomplishment to be able to pull this off so convincingly, yet cinematically, yet believably. The fact that they didn't push you into the realm of the fantastical, albeit I do have a unicorn mount and a flaming mount, so they did take a little bit of artistic license there. Kefalonia. Kefalonia is where you originally start the game. And what was very cool about this is it's a beautiful place, a very rich landscape, but as they describe it, it's an environment that's been kind of taken over by corruption. There's bandits and mercenaries that are out to get you and stuff like that. And as much as you are attached to this place as your home, they had to integrate both into the story and into the gameplay itself that it's a place you feel the need to leave. It's kind of small, you're an adventurer, and when you meet the partner that you meet and the young girl that you become friends with, you can't feel so attached to this home landscape that you don't feel the desire to leave. Then we get into the character designs. And the early concepts that we have over here were designed by, again, the art director, Thierry Dansereau. And I can't stress enough from a personal professional's perspective, the importance of having an art director who's really good at drawing. Because in my opinion, a good art director is somebody who's as capable of producing art as the artists themselves. And very often there's a conflict between artists and directors when the director is not really artistic and doesn't know how to communicate visually or verbally the mandate. And Thierry is obviously a very skilled artist himself. And then the right is by of Cassandra, one of the main characters you can play. You can play Cassandra or Alexius. And here it's by Yan Li. And early concept art by Frédéric Rambaud. So Fred's also has his hands in this one as well. I think this is probably Fred over here. This looks looks a lot like Fred's work. Very nice and loose pieces, beautiful. You can kind of have a little bit of card art influence in there. You can see that for sure. Here's another thing about Cassandra. And I'm going to say this with relation to modern day video games. Look at Horizon, the game like Horizon Zero Dawn or Horizon The Forbidden West. Can't wait to get my hands on that book. I'm very impressed with modern interpretations of female heroes. She's feminine. She's also convincing as a warrior. She's not this overly idealized female character in skimpy clothing holding a knife. She's actually a very convincing female warrior. You have as much, from a male's perspective, playing video game characters, I would very often tend to gravitate towards male characters just because they were cooler looking. They looked more like badasses and the girls were kind of like these weird chicks. And I didn't like that. The female characters didn't have the same integrity, the believability as warrior characters. That's not the case anymore. Some of my favorite main characters, playable characters, are the female characters. I'm playing with Alexius right now, but my replay is going to be with Cassandra for sure. When we get into Alexius, he actually doesn't look so much like this in the final product. He actually looks, from my experience growing up with Greek people my whole life, the actual concept piece looks less Greek. The final 3D version of him, they have the bigger, darker eyes, which is more iconic Greek eyes. Greeks always have those beautiful big eyes, right? So in this particular case, he looks a little bit more of a neutral appearance. Sketches by Frédéric Rambaud. There we go. This is all Fred's work over here. And to the left, this is Yan Li as well. Look at these gorgeous designs by Yan. I hate to break it to you, I'm a visual person. Armor matters to me. I remember when I was working at some company I won't name, that isn't worth mentioning. I was working at this one company, and I remember one of the producers walking up to me, and she had seen that I had World of Warcraft concept art on my page. She goes, "You play World of Warcraft?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been playing it for years." And she said, "It's just a fashion show." And the douchiest voice you could possibly imagine. Why do you play it? It's just a fashion show. I'm like, that's exactly why I play it. I love cool armor. Sorry, I'm in art. You're talking to the art director here. So I was, the art, the designs, the armor designs, the costumes, that once you get into the actual armor sets and stuff like that, freaking gorgeous designs. Look at these. Who does these? Previous spread. That's Fred Rambaud, and up here is by Gabriel Blais. Most of these are going to be French names since they're all from Quebec. Again, shout out to Ubisoft Montreal. Marcos! Right away, one of the things that I thought was a very clever move is you're introduced to Marcos, which is kind of like Alexios's or Cassandra's kind of unofficial dad, kind of the guy who was, these are abandoned kids and he kind of took them in. But he's a bit of a swindler, you know? He's a shady salesman, so to speak. And he always comes by these business deals and gets himself in trouble. And he always gets Alexios, the tough guy, to come and pull him out of trouble and stuff like that. But what's really cool is, again, it creates this parental relationship that's not too bondy, in the sense that Alexios can take off. He can go on adventure and stuff like that, and you're not going to feel like you're abandoning your family. Albeit, the little girl's a different story. Then you get Barnabas over here, who's kind of the wise man, the kind of guy who kind of guides him and follows him along on his sailing adventures, which is another whole dimension of gorgeousness into this game, which we'll get to in a sec. When we start getting into the encampments and some of the architecture, I was watching a making of recently where they were talking about where Ubisoft was talking about in the recreation of ancient Greece, one of the things that they had to pay close attention to is the fact that in ancient Greece, they didn't have the same type of urban planning as they have today. Whereas a lot of these architecture and the infrastructure and everything like that has been very carefully pre-planned. So it's all following this bigger vision. Where in Greece, a lot of it was just expansion across the land. They grew so incredibly quickly. So they had this, there was this cross between creating this beautiful artistic and architecturally ambitious architecture, while at the same time having this organic kind of spotty layout of the landscape itself. And one of the places that you're going to see a lot of, are these different encampments that you overrun to just kind of take over different parts of the land. It has to organically fit into different landscapes, on hillsides, next to plantations and stuff like that. So you want these things to be somewhat modular, but feel organically built into the landscape. Now, when you get into things like castles, cityscapes, anything with this very ambitious architecture, these can be places you're just venturing through, as running through a lot of kind of like the parkour type of approach to Assassin's Creed in general, or these fortresses. I have to give my props to Ubisoft. I have been playing this game for months, as I said, and I have yet to encounter a single piece of architecture that Ubisoft has not seamlessly animated. Like, I would go like, how the hell do I jump from there to there? And sure enough, like there's a rooftop, and you jump off the rooftop, and there's a rope that you don't see everywhere else, kind of like just this banner that's going across. And sure enough, he jumps up to the rope, and he doesn't just avoid it. He swings off of it and it lands in this cool way, and then kind of stumbles to get back on his feet. It feels so natural. It's so beautifully fleshed out. The breadth of work that you guys put into making up this game, probably one of the most polished experiences that I've ever had. And I've played lots of these types of games. So, wow, good job. Now, when you get into Phokis, the thing about Phokis is that it's known as the land of the gods, the pre-Greek era, so to speak. And it gave Ubisoft an opportunity to be able to add some more monumental, some more larger than life and iconically historical pieces into it, but integrated into the design to create this, not something you've seen a lot of up to this point, landscape, where things start to feel a little bit more amazing and fantastical. And they again pulled this off with the perfect balance with the game, that when they do expose you to something impressive, for instance, Athens, the first time you experience ancient Athens, your jaw hits the ground and you just go, wow. And you know, you've probably heard the name Athens a million times. Athens is still a beautiful, huge city. But when you actually see it in the context of ancient Greece, just how incredibly impressive it is, juxtaposed against the rest of the landscape, you have these jaw-dropping moments in the game. And like I said, I'm not even halfway through the bloody game, and I'm like at level 56 at this point. Once you get somewhat into the game, again, you've gotten kind of used to the rhythm, you've traveled around in these different areas, and then a whole new dimension, a whole new tab has been added to the game, and that is the cult of the cosmos, this underground cult. And it's your job to go and uncover them and discover clues throughout the game, either through questing or just through adventuring and exploration and stuff like that. Now, when you get into Athens, the political and the emotional landscape changes. As I mentioned, not only are you introduced to this beautiful, huge, overwhelmingly huge city, but you're also starting to be introduced to politicians, to more drama, to more public speaking, to more chatter on the streets. People are dressed a little bit better. It's a slightly wealthier environment. And you start to get introduced to these different historical characters where you get a chance to experience history from a historical perspective. I hated history in high school. It was just names and dates and names and dates. It was boring as hell. But when you start to realize that history is a story, that these are people, that they lived here, that they had a specific type of influence on society, like Pericles, or you have Aspasia, or you have a few pages later, Cleon, you start to get introduced to these people and get to know their Alcibiades, of course. My first official lover, I chose Heart for him. Well, he hit on me long enough, he deserved it. Alcibiades is arguably one of the most perverted characters in the game. He'll sleep with anything that walks. And it just so turns out that Alexius ends up being one of his conquests. And then we have Socrates, who's an incredibly intelligent character. Of course, he's Socrates, but he's interpreted by his peers as being a chatterbox. He asks too many damn questions. So it kind of puts you into you end up having a relationship with these historical characters, which humanizes them and makes the history of these characters a little bit more relatable, rather than just being philosopher number 447 who said these cool things. He's actually somebody with a personality that connects you to them on a more personal level. I think that's a very smart move. Then we get into different cultures. This reminds me very much of the approach in Horizon Zero Dawn, which you can check out right here, where different clans, different cultures have different iconic colors and garb and shapes that make them identifiable. The colors of their ships and their sails, the colors of their costumes, their personalities. Then comes an entirely different dimension to this game, and that is the ocean, the sea. You can physically feel the wind blowing in your face. You can smell the seawater. You can hear them singing these classical sailing songs by your crew, these Greek songs by your crew. It's one of the first games, if you look at the making of, where they actually integrated foam dynamics, where the water actually washes up all this foam onto the water, which was gorgeous. There's birds flying by. There's big, huge blue whales that fall into the water. And when you actually start to sail really hard, your remote starts to shake because the whole boat is shaking from the intensity of this. The way they integrated sailing into this, and that an entirely different dimension of gameplay is done on water as it is on land, is incredible. All these different sailing ships. Now, I just started killing indiscriminately at a certain point. I just kill whoever I see first and gather the loot. I have no loyalty. I'm Mistios. I just go and attack everything that walks. Everything with a heartbeat. And we have the pirates. I love the pirates. I'm playing assassin personally, so the pirate set is my personal favorite set. I'm all about that poison damage, y'all. Not only is over the water exploration amazing, but underwater exploration. This entire sea, you can swim the entire sea. I can't express enough how you can jump out of your boat at any time you feel like it and explore the sea underneath. And most of the time you're not going to, you're going to sail right past it. But do you have access to this incredible underwater landscape as well? Ubisoft. Wow. I'm going to end today's quick overview. Not an exhaustive overview by any stretch. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped over here of Laconia. Just to enjoy this beautiful artwork. And I want to stop to say this. One of the things that I love about modern day documentaries, modern day games, modern day films, is how much games and films like this are a reflection of society's maturing respect for different cultures worldwide, which is something that I find is particularly important in today's day and age, where we are a far more connected society today than we ever were. And what I found, like, if I even go back in as far as the 80s or 90s, when I was younger and I used to watch a lot of these different movies that would have different people from different cultures, from India or China or Greece or whatever, people were far more, people would stereotype these things or take far too much artistic license or even be flat out insulting when it came to recreating people, cultures, accents, landscapes, and architecture. And this game is testament to the fact that the world that we live in, as it exists today, is diverse enough and beautiful enough and rich enough if you get to know it, that you don't really need to embellish all that much or at all. That the world as it stands right now is beautifully represented as is. And it's your duty not to reinterpret it through artistic eyes, rather to just learn it properly. And it's for that very reason that I've been playing this game for the last 3 months, because I feel like I'm not only playing a game, I'm also learning at the same time. I'm learning things about Greek culture. I'm learning things about architecture and history from a respectable place. So it's not corrupting my knowledge of it, albeit it's a game, I get that. But I don't feel like I'm doing a disservice to Greeks and Greek history by playing the game. I feel like it's actually helping, and it's helping to connect me to that world. And I feel like that's a very important role that games have come to contribute to modern day society. So with that said, thank you for joining me today on this very exciting tour of this book, and I'll see you soon. Take care.